back to the Street Photography Magazine podcast. I'm Bob Patterson, the founder of Street Photography Magazine. People call me Publisher Emeritus. How's that? That sound cool?
That's perfect.
And on today is Ashley Riffo, the publisher and chief cook and bottle washer. And we have two guests today, and we're going to confuse the hell out of you because they're both named Wayne. So we got Wayne Campbell and Wayne Crichlow, and they're from the London area over in England. And they are both visual activists as well as excellent photographers. And they're with us today. They've come out with a book. We're not just talking about the book, but they have published a book called The Carnival of Resistance. And it's all about the carnival in Notting Hill and over in London. I did visit Notting Hill once. It was 26 years ago this month. That's the last time I was there.
Was you expecting to find Hugh Grant there or anything? You weren't expecting that?
Yeah,
No.
That's right. It was when that movie came out.
Yeah, there you go.
I forget what it was about. It was not exactly a blockbuster, I don't think. But anyway, welcome, guys. Thanks for being with us. And actually, you're still trying to figure out how to call them. I can't call them Wayne C because each of their last names begin with C. So I guess we're going to settle on Big Wayne and Grumpy.
Fine by me.
Grandpa.
Fine by me.
How about
Grandpa? Grandpa Wayne. Yeah.
Grandpa Wayne. That sounds good. Well, anyway, welcome. Thanks for being with us. We've got big time difference. We're just waking up, and they're getting ready to go to tea time. You guys do that? You do tea time? Eat the little cake things?
Lunch. We don't go to tea time. No.
That's good.
Grumpy goes tea time sometimes.
Yeah.
Takes the bears
the posh one
down, makes some sandwiches.
Have a nice warm drink before I go to bed, just to sort of get my mood going.
Yeah, same here. So anyway, why don't you, both photographers, and I say Big Wen's a Fuji guy. That's okay. Right? No,
Grumpy.
No,
Grumpy
I'm
Wayne.
sorry, Grumpy is.
Grumpy is.
Yeah.
Grumpy is.
Someone's got to change their name.
Some may say that's why I'm grumpy, but that's all a lie. That's all a lie.
Yeah, that won't make you grumpy. Although I was using my XT5 on my jazz shoot, and I was rather grumpy than myself.
Right.
Mainly from bumping a little manual versus single or continuous.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's easily done.
I kept bumping that. I kept switching into manual focus when I didn't. Whatever. I won't go into that. We're here to talk about you. So I was pretty grumpy myself. Anyway, so why don't you start off by telling us, how did you two get together to collaborate? You don't live close to each other, it doesn't sound like. Or maybe you do.
Different but we actually were both presenting our work in an exhibition a few years ago. And when we were there, we kind of we just hit it off, when you gravitate towards the person that shares your name, your initials.
I was going to say that. Did you guys meet in a club for Waynes?
That's actually a really funny story.
Okay.
And it turns out that, we got to know each other. Our work was on show, and we got chatting. And that was 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's probably coming up to 4 years, I think. Maybe.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And
Not that long ago.
Just can't get rid of him.
And, fun fact, I'm in therapy.
Since 4 years ago?
Yeah. Get discount.
I'm actually interested to know how you guys both came into photography as well. I know I read Wayne Campbell that you said you picked up a camera in the first place kind of to hide. I thought that was an interesting statement.
Yeah. Roughly, I actually started off as an art director. So I would work with other photographers and get them to point the camera where I wanted it and stuff. But when a friend of mine's was selling a Nikon D80 70. And I remember going to family functions, and it was the perfect tool to hide where people be wanting to talk to me. No, I'm busy, leave me alone, I'm busy. So my introduction to this passion of mine was born out of me wanting to hide, and then I just kind of, back then everything was shot on auto. Press a button and that little flash would pop up on the top of the camera. And I'm a stickler for kind of like just doing it yourself. So I didn't get any manuals. I would just look at the camera and work on it and try and get better as time went on. And, the big learning for me was when I was introduced to Lightroom and Aperture, analyzing metadata to improve your pictures. So that's how my journey began, in hiding.
And now he's out.
God, still hiding. Takes a lot of energy.
Mine experience goes back. I think I picked up my first camera. It was a bridge camera, a little Fuji bridge camera, when my daughter was born. And I had great ideas to take photograph of her developing as she grew up into the woman that she is, almost 25 years ago now. That project kind of fell apart after the first couple of months, but
like most, yeah,
like most. But I kind of dipped in and out of photography along the way, and then I decided that I wanted to get a little bit more serious on this, and I got my first DSLR camera, which was I think you guys call them Rebels over there in the States. It was a mid-range Canon 650D that they say on this side of the world, and I felt I was the most professional photographer ever because I can actually take the lens off. Wow, I can take the lens off. Wow, I can do all this as I'm a professional photographer. I kept it on automatic. Of course you do, because I didn't know what the buttons meant or what happened, how the menus worked. So I kept it on manual and everything else and muddled through on that. Then I kind of sort of stumbled into sort of developing my own language and finding my own ways. We all do, right? So when you start in photography, you're doing all sorts of stuff, from landscapes to your dog to your shoes to photographing smoke trails to whatever. And then it was street photography that actually was the one that kind of pulled me into the whole photography kind of genre, street photography, Henri Bresson and the classics and that field. And I like the idea of being probably voyeurism, really. That's what it is. That's what we're doing, right? So just hanging around, lurking, just observing and then capturing. And I did a lot of that with that DSLR. And I found out I was shooting on the 35mm lens. Camera was heavy, bulky. You needed to have back brace. You needed to have all sorts of things to carry that thing around. And also what I found out was that the subjects that I was photographing would then their behavior would change when they see this big bulky camera just disappear in front of them. And then I spoke to somebody and that's how I got into mirrorless. And my first mirrorless was a Fuji system. So it was an X100S, and that got me out of loads of menus, lots of lenses, lots of this. And I was discreet, stealth-like and sneaked in and created stuff. So that's where I kind of started, and I'd kind of used that genre, what I learned in street photography, to take into the protest photography, which Wayne and I are very much where we connected on this particular way of being visual activists and using aspects of that, observing, not interfering with what's in front of us, but actually capturing those emotions and those moments, because I think that's what I was born to do anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing how you find your way, what your way is eventually. I was on your homepage. I love your homepage. I like a little saying, hardly seen, always noticed.
Yeah.
And that picture's killer. It belongs on their homepage.
Yeah.
Did you take that, or is that a stock image?
No,
I'm kidding.
Stocked it. There's such thing as stock it with AI. No, that's a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair. But there's quite a few stock images. No, not really.
It's a great shot.
But that particular image was. I started off trying to build a body of work of security guys in high fashion shops. So it's probably the same in the States as well. You get these guys that stand at the front door of Tiffany's or whatever with their suits on, letting people in, letting people out. And I just saw that guy there. And I got him to pose for that shot. He saw me, I saw him. I said, let's hold that. And I did created that. And I've done that on a few occasions as well, kind of building up, these
Don't
guys
move.
don't move. Don't move. Yeah. Hold your breath. But yeah, that's, a lot of shutter dragging, motion, adding energy is the sort of thing that I like doing.
I'm curious, did you guys think of yourselves as activists before photography?
I made a conscious decision in 2020. Interestingly enough, when I first got my camera, I was bloke with camera. That was my title. And it wasn't until 2017, when I was in Cuba, that I started calling myself a photographer. And then in 2020, after witnessing George Floyd being murdered on TV, I realized that I wanted my work to say more than I'm pretty. It needed to be a reflection of what my values were, and that's when I became a visual activist. I just really wanted the body of work I was doing to represent how I was feeling about being a black man living in England with everything that's politically going on around us, and it interestingly fit really, really well. I mean, when I started calling myself a visual activist, that's when my passion, photography, met my focus. And the two together gave me direction. And I was able to focus on this new chapter, this new direction, this new way of telling stories and sitting comfortably as a visual activist to do so.
The book is about the carnival in Notting Hill, which I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of it. But can you tell us a bit about it and what drew you to use this to be the centerpiece of your project?
Well,
Is your book?
Bob, you're unaware that you don't know about the Notting Hill Carnival. Over a weekend visited by 2.5 million people. Oh,
Yes.
Bob,
Hey,
you
look,
do.
I live in this bubble called the United States.
I felt pretty ignorant when I read your book as well, because my perspective of I lived in South America for several years and in Bolivia, which has its own strong carnival traditions, but they're not linked to the Caribbean. So, I do live in Florida, so it's not like I've never heard of Caribbean carnival, but I felt so ignorant when I read everything, all the information and the history. And I'm so glad you guys did the book because I learned so much.
This year is the 60th anniversary of the Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah, I saw
But not
that.
only is it that, it's also the 75th anniversary of steel bands being played in England. The Festival of Britain in 1951, there was a Trinidadian steel band that came over and played there. So there are two kind of significant anniversaries happening this year. But I suppose during the 19s, there were a few race riots in London. The Windrush generation that had not too long before come over. And there was a significant murder, a guy called Kelsar Cochrane, who was killed in a race-related incident, as they described it. And I suppose with all of these tensions that were happening at the time, the obvious, or some would say the obvious way to retaliate would have been with knives and guns. But no, Claudia Jones decided to bring heritage, culture, and legacy from the Caribbean and share that with a British audience. So, we've got Jab Jab from Grenada, you've got Juve, and you have Mass. And these are all aspects of the carnival that we speak about in the book, and we get some incredible writers to kind of like share their views on these aspects of the Notting Hill Carnival. And I suppose because it was also the 60th anniversary, one of the things that I realized is that, and the same with Wayne, I'd been taking pictures of the Notting Hill Carnival for the last, 15, 16, 17 years, and they'd just been interesting kind of like bookends on hard drives. And then we had a conversation and on reviewing the work that we had done, it felt like a really, really good idea to put this book together. And I'd already brought out 3 books. So the whole idea of understanding the process of putting a book together, I understand that now, and it would appear that Grumpy Wayne actually got some banging pictures. As a result, it was a no-brainer. I think color work and my black and white work coming together really makes the product so much more spectacular.
Yeah, it's. I think this was an interesting collaboration where both of us, as Wayne said, have collected a whole bunch of images, sort of Vivian Maier style, never to be seen by anybody until now. We thought, well, actually, maybe we should put it into a book. And having those contrasting views through different eyes, different lenses, literally, of the same thing at different points of time, I think made it very interesting and made it quite rich in content. And almost it grabs the user because there's a lot to see and there's lots of images that pull you in and tell you certain aspects of the carnival as we saw it over the last sort of 15, 17 years. This is not a historical book per se. It's not a book where you find lots of, archived black and white images from yesteryear for the last 60 years. It's very much a contemporary view through our eyes as a lived experience. Wayne being one of the performers in the carnival previously as well, playing the steel drums. I actually performed when I used to be in the music. I used to be in a music group here in the UK, and I performed at the carnival a few years back as well. So we've got this musical heritage as well as our photography and all that kind of stuff coming together. It just felt like the stars were aligned, right? And it made sense for us to do this book now. And I think what's interesting that what you've just said there, Ashley, and you, Bob, is that you really didn't know too much about Notting Hill Carnival. What's it about? Do we expect you to know anything about the Notting Hill Carnival some 3.5, whatever it is, 1,000 miles away from where you are right now? Probably not. But Notting Hill Carnival is the largest street carnival in Europe. So it attracts somewhere around 1 million plus people a day over the 3 days, the 3 main days that you see the carnival operating in. So it's massive. It's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think what I've noticed, and Wayne probably might agree, is that over time, inevitably, the commerciality of this event starts to become bigger. You get bigger sponsors, etc. Right? And the question is that diluting the message of what is the origins of the carnival and what that means as a piece of heritage for the people that lived in that part of West London and the people that came over to England as a whole, right? So I think it's important for us to step back a little bit, reposition, represent, and I wouldn't like to use the word educate, but it is kind of, right? But expose it a little bit more. And if we can push the message out beyond these shores to over there to where you are now, you broadcast internationally, but get it out beyond this little island here, I think is a great thing.
Yeah, I liked that you said that we're in a moment where so much of culture is kind of fleeting, it's online, and this project is kind of an answer to that. Do you feel like it's an answer because of the way you're sharing it with people or because it's a physical book? I mean, how can we remedy that where culture is, in general, around the world, different cultures seem to be getting kind of diluted and sometimes even lost?
We've managed to put together a really interesting collection of writers, poets, and to contribute to the book. So that's really given it a bit of status, I suppose. And the words that are in the book, the words that they have written, really help to tell the story, the history and the heritage of what Carnival represents. And I think you've got an older generation who probably came over in the 50s, who understand Carnival because they lived it. They were a part of that transition. They get it. And then you have this younger generation who they know the Carnival because it's a place to go, drink rum, eat chicken, dance, get high. It's a party. It's a massive street party. And for me, I've been going to Carnival for 20 plus years, and I had, beyond being in a still band and having that association, Carnival was a place to go to listen to music, get drunk, and meet girls. But there's so much more to it, and I think what we're hoping to do is to, not just through the book, but for a series of talks that we're going to be doing with the book. We're going to be embarking on a book tour. We're hoping that we'll be able to shine a light on some of the more kind of historical points of Carnival, what it represents, why it is so culturally significant, and how it has helped to form some of the traditions that we are used to in this country. So there's a lot that we want to do with this, and the messaging is important and it's huge.
You know, there is a reason why the book's called Carnival of Resistance, and that gets lost over time as well, right? Because the origins is all about defiance. It's all about resistance, and for the community at the time when it was created, right? So that gets diluted along the way. We see the fun side of things and everything else, but there is a serious undertone there, or serious thread in there that I think we just can't forget. So we just need to. So I see myself as a visual storyteller as well as visual activist. It's my responsibility to use the tools that I have. And the only tool that I have is my camera, because I'm not a writer per se or anything like that. So I use my camera to capture those stories so I can then hand it on to somebody else to continue and encourage other storytellers to contribute to this art, this artifact of knowledge and history, right? Because everybody is that I'm a firm believer that everybody is a storyteller, right? No matter who you are and what you use to tell that story is not really that important than telling the story itself, right? So yes, I'm not a gear man, not really bothered about gear and what cameras, what lenses and all those kind of things. Is, you know, does the viewer understand what I'm trying to say beyond what I use to say it? So we're trying to encourage people to tell their stories as well.
Wayne is very much in the purest sense as a storyteller, and it's interesting because after our initial meeting at this exhibition that we were both in, we would meet on the street at protests. So I was working on my book 0710 Year One, following all of the protests for Palestine on the streets of London, and I would meet Wayne and various other visual activists week in, week out, capturing what was happening on the streets. So we would often find ourselves at similar protests, be it Congolese, Sudanese, Palestine, anti-fascist. And there was like a clique of photographers who would routinely go out, and then, you know, you get to know each other, and then because we all had that shared interest. And I suppose with Wayne, I appreciated how he worked. His work was very powerful, very colorful. So we kind of like were drawn to one another as well. And because we both looked like another photographer called Mizan Harriman. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all.
I just heard that name recently.
Oh, did you? All right. Okay. Now
yes,
you can
I just read something about it recently.
So
Great.
Mizan Harriman is also a visual activist. He's just brought out, last year he brought out a film, and he was the first Black photographer to shoot the cover of British Vogue.
Yes, you know what? Sarita Hockley saw an exhibit at Photo London by him, and it really made a powerful effect on her. Yes, that's where. Yeah, I looked at his website just recently.
So when I've got my square glasses on, we're often mistaken for Mizan, and I'm like, no, I'm the other Black photographer. So yeah,
but I'm probably more mixed up with him than you are, to be fair. But that's why I'm always wearing a hat, because so you can tell the difference.
And we don't.
You're not wearing a New York Yankees hat.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of you wearing that. Why does everybody wear a Yankees hat?
I wasn't wearing. I don't wear a Yankees hat. I'm not affiliated to any team over there. He's got a Yankees hat. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
This is getting too confusing, you guys.
You know.
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. Yeah.
Okay, if I want to look like Spike Lee, I'd have to shuffle down in the chair a bit more.
That's right. You'll be half as you're way too big for Spike Lee.
You need a Cleveland Guardians hat. That's what you need.
Sorry.
You know, you were talking about the writers and poets that contributed, and I was wondering, how did you already obviously knew your photographs. How did the work of the other contributors affect your sequencing of the images? And did it, in reading their work, did it change your feelings about your own images?
I think for me, I had an idea that I wanted a piece of writing for all aspects of the carnival book, Juve, mass, culture, children, music, and the board. Oh, and something to come at the end. And when I first contacted, so the first person who I contacted who actually agreed to do it was a young lady called Sam Carnival, and she is a costume maker. So I knew that when she wrote her piece that, I wanted to make sure that I had a selection of images that represented mass. And I asked Wayne to send me a load of pictures. And then as the project kind of like progressed, we were finding different contributors who specialized in different areas. Somebody who understood Jab and Juve, somebody who had a really good. We had a writer called Ishmael Blackgrove. He brought out a book about 5 years ago called Carnival, and managed to get him to write a piece for culture. And then when it came to music, I knew Wayne had a lot more images around music than I did. So we got Michael Riley, who's Dr. Michael Riley, who's a professor at Westminster University and also a great musician. Wayne had more pictures for music in that section than I did. But once we had the kind of departments of the book kind of laid out, then we would feed images into each department. And then the process was does it work? And then we did have a session where we invited round a couple of our peers to go through what we had put together and to give some comments. And that was really, really good. And it's always great when you kind of like allow some of your peers to come and see what you're doing and get it out.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that process. And then we just sat down, ended up taking pictures of each other.
Of course,
because you do that, right? I think the whole creative process and putting the book together, I found was interesting because, you have a bunch of pictures that's been sort of marinating on your hard drive for God knows how many years. You then got to then grab those images and then get a long edit and then try and get a short edit to fit in each of the chapters. And then you got to try and sequence them in the way with Wayne's images and my images. That it's all very
color
deliberate.
and monochrome, no doubt. That's not easy.
Well, yeah, and I think I quite like the idea that we kind of challenge people's perception. Should it all be all black and white, or should it all be in color? You know what? Let's bring both together and see what happens.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you did.
And I think that just adds to the richness. So it's always difficult, I think, what it's like when you're trying to choose your photograph. It's, as I say, it's like picking your favorite child and all those kind of things, right? Your firstborn, to try and get down to that. And then when you sequence it, even though you may be attached to a particular image, you have to then be asking that question. This may be technically a great image, but does it fit the story, right? Is it a distraction from the story?
Yeah.
Should it be there? And be bold enough to say, you know what, let's just cull it, because it can always be a part 2. Who knows?
It can. And one of the other things I found were people coming up to me and saying, yeah, but Wayne, Carnival's colourful and there's not enough colour, And I knew that was a question that would come. And I was very clear beforehand that this book for me, my images are going to be in black and white. Come what may.
Good for you.
But there was so many people like, what do you mean it's in black and white?
Yes. I hear that a lot. Yes.
You know what? I wanted to pay you guys a compliment. I think now is the place for it. When I okay, so maybe this is negligent, but when I received your first email, I went straight to the PDFs and looked at the images before I really read much. And so before I really knew what your project was about, I was looking at these photos of Carnival and I was like, these are different. You know, we see tons of Carnival photos from all over the world. They're bright and they're just about having a great time and
Noisy. Yeah.
indulging and a big crazy party. And what I saw in your collection of images right away was almost a fierceness. I felt that when I looked at them. And then when I read what this project was about, I thought, man, they nailed it with the images, because I felt that before I read it. And so I just wanted to compliment your edit of the images, how you presented them. I think your storytelling abilities are insanely good, because to feel that before reading it, you know, we edit a lot of submissions to this magazine. So a lot of times I'll read a story and I'm like, oh, that's a great story. I love that story. And then I look at the images and I'm like, they're almost there. They almost, like, they don't tell the story by themselves, but along with this text, it's great. Your images spoke about resistance on their own. So I think that's huge. I think that's a great achievement.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I was also wondering, how did you do that? Because Carnival is such a joyous and bright and festive time. So how did you isolate those moments to tell this other story?
Wow, it's got to be our individual eyes. I think I say it's individualized, but quite clearly we think very similar in the way how we see certain scenes and certain things that open up in front of us. Wayne's very strong on capturing emotion, and you can see that in his images. And you know, the need for having it in colours not really necessary. It's all about grabbing those emotions. Yeah. And likewise, I'm the same. My visual language is desaturating. People say, why are you taking your colour out? But you know, I desaturate quite a lot, and it's deliberate. Some people say, because I used to shoot a lot in black and white previously. I remember one, I did a talk for somebody, and they said, do you think the reason why you desaturate your colours is because you're still fond to actually produce black and white images, but you can't quite get there to be fully colour? You know, you're halfway there. You know, that's just not the case. It's whatever because our visual language is always evolving as photographers. Nobody can say you get stuck in a particular mode and you never evolve. But I think for all of our images, both Wayne's treatment of these images and then his style and my style, I think for us, I think both of us, have got the ability to capture those emotions. And you see that in our protest photography as well. It's not necessarily about people holding signs. There's a billion images of people holding signs. But it's actually looking at that individual, ignoring the signs to a certain extent, and just pulling out that emotion in that moment, really.
And I also want to add to that. Sometimes this would be my first collaboration. So my previous books, you know, for I'm going to do, and then one of the things that I was really conscious about was growing the brand of celebration of demonstration. And, you know, it can't just be about me. I think bringing other people into the family allows it to grow better. But what was quite telling is that, you know, on certain sections of the book, I had an idea about how I wanted it to look. And then I said, Wayne, send over some of your pictures. He'd send over some pictures. And then I'd start looking at Wayne's pictures and putting it down on the spreads and thinking, oh my God, that's a powerful picture. Now I need to go back and find a powerful picture as well. You know, so there were times when, you know, it felt like he was keeping me honest, because, you know, I would have to go and look over images that I had taken, and I found a few images that I didn't even recognize, that I didn't know I had, because I took time to go through the first and second edits, and then I was finding stuff, and I was thinking, wow, okay, this is a really good way of working, because what I'm doing now is I'm working harder to make sure that this project works, and that it's as powerful as it can be with both of our images. And that for me felt really, really, really good. You know, sometimes if you're sat in a silo in your own sort of like echo chamber, you don't really get to test yourself enough. And this has been great, because it's allowed me to really look at what my visual language is, and how it's evolved and could it be improved upon?
And I think also as well, we just said there, Wayne, with the, kind of not validation, I suppose it's a kind of validation, or it's kind of shining the spotlight, you've collected a whole bunch of images over a period of time. We all know what it's like when you unload your memory card, you just kind of unload it all, then you do a real brutal cull and you get rid of stuff, or like me, I've got a real weird habit, and maybe it's ADHD or something, but what I do is I don't get a new card all the time. Mad, I know. I probably won't be doing it now because cards are going up in price now. But when they were cheap, I keep the originals, right? So I'll even have some stuff on there that I've not looked back on. And even during COVID, when I was thinking, I need some content, I was going back to stuff that I hadn't actually edited or posted. I kind of cast it to one side, re-edited it and saw it in a different light, and then put that out there, and so on and so forth. I think working together, I've spotted some images where Wayne may be dismissive of it. I said, "What are you doing, bro? That is a banger. You want to get that back in, that in. Don't cast that off." And likewise, so we kind of bounce off of each other because somebody from the outside can see something that you can't see being on the inside. So I think it's useful to kind of collaborate in that way.
So are you a hoarder then?
I am a terrible hoarder. I've got some.
I don't know. It sounds kind of efficient to me. Like instead of having several big,
hundreds
hard
of
drives,
cards.
you just have a collection of
hundreds of cards. I've got this kind of weird thing in my head thinking, well, if I was shooting film, I'll still have the negs and I'll still have all the roll of film, right? So it's no different apart from it's digital.
That's true.
Right? So, and if I get any copyright sort of contentious conversations with somebody, I say, well, I've got the original card that I recorded it on.
Here it
Do
is.
you?
Yeah.
So
I'm envisioning like a photo album with the plastic things, and like every slot
Actually,
has
what it's like
with the information, the date, and all that.
It's not as organised as it should be. But what it's like, Ashley, is I'm going to hire a garage and just pile it up in boxes in the garage and just close it, and hopefully somebody discover that when I'm gone.
That's the best way to get famous.
Yeah, it is. I don't know who did that before, but I think that's a great idea. I think you should take that.
That's already happened.
That's a solution to a big problem, though, what you guys are talking about, collaborating between the two of you, because it is so hard to look at your own work. We see that also with the magazine. Sometimes amazing photographers will send us stuff and we look at their website and we're like, why did they send us this? Like, that's not your best work.
Yeah.
But it's like you get some kind of blindness with your own work. So working with somebody else is so useful, not just a third party to review like your edit, which is, I think that's pretty essential as well. But working together, you guys could spot stuff that you wouldn't see on your own. Like that's big.
Exactly. I suppose it pays to get on with each other as well. Allegedly, I think apparently get on with each other. That kind of helps.
Well, how could you it's good that you chose a book on resistance. Like you could feel it while you were working together too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't tell us to call you grumpy for no reason at all.
Well, I hope I haven't been grumpy, right?
You've been grumpy-ish.
No.
Grumpy-ish. I've diluted the grumpiness.
Yeah,
right,
that's
okay.
That's fine. So how long did it take you, from when the day you decided, let's do this, to when you first receive a box of the books?
Okay, so we should receive the box of the book in, I'd say, 3 weeks-ish, thereabouts.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did we first have a conversation?
Was it before? It was before Christmas, wasn't it? I mean, we were bouncing the idea around for a good almost 2 years, bouncing the idea, but never really got it together.
Yeah. So you decided in December of
I think it was like sort of late last or summer last year, or around that sort of time. Because we'd already exited, because Carnival over here in the UK, Notting Hill Carnival's the last weekend of August every year, right? So because it's a bank, we also have a bank holiday normally around that time. So I think really we confirmed it at the last Carnival last summer.
I'm trying to find one of the early files.
You were trying to early files, and that's when we decided, you know what, we We don't need to create anything. We've already got some current images from last summer, plus all the stuff we've done before. It's now really doing the painful work of kind of narrowing that body, that amount of images down to a cohesive body of work. We didn't want it to be some sort of random photo book with random pictures, because there's plenty of those around, right? So it just needed to actually resonate.
Well, I
That's still
started.
pretty fast because of all the elements that you guys included. Like, there's plenty of history,
designing.
there's essays from other people, quotes, like all of that adds to it, and all that takes time to collect and edit.
Yeah,
I know it's been.
I started designing in November last year.
There you go, November, even later than I thought it was.
So, yeah, and if I look at the tech files, we were getting files in December. Wow, we started late. So there's a 6-month turnaround on this project.
From
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Big Wayne, since you have experience doing this on your own books, I assume that helped a lot. Did you go back to the same printer that you used in the past?
Yeah, the printer that we used, Goma Press in Wales. So we printed lithography, which would give us a better finish than had it been digital. And
nice.
So, and one of the things that I was keen to do was to make sure that the quality of the book, if anything, was better than the previous books that I had done. So, all of the books have been kind of hardback, with this one's 212 pages, but this Carnival of Resistance is even bigger. It's another 40 pages on top of that. So all of the books have been just really nice coffee table sized books.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty happy with. So this one, we've done something a bit special. We're not doing the largest print run. There's going to be about 400 books being printed, and 100 of the 400 will be a special edition with 4 variant covers, 25 of each.
Nice.
So that's quite exciting, I have to say.
Yeah.
And we've chosen some really interesting images.
What a great idea to have like a limited edition with variant covers. I love that. How'd you guys come up with that?
We were having a conversation, and one of the things that I did with my previous book is that I did 3 different covers. We printed with the Palestine book, this book here. We printed 1,300 books. It was actually the special edition cover. We only printed 100 of these, and 1,200 of the other 2 designs, which were that's the same one. Which were this one of a woman wrapped in a Palestinian flag, which I thought was quite cool.
I love that.
Okay. Am I going to find the other one? Is it up here? Is it up here? Is it up here? No, it's not. And another one of a child, which was quite powerful. So having done that in the past, one of the things that I was keen to do was to try and give the audience something which was a bit more collectible. It's a small print run. So 300 of the books are going to have a specific image, and then 25 of 425s, which will have an embossed cover with a special signed kind of like inside sheet. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's going to be, they will only ever be in existence 25 of the first print on those books. So once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to create a buzz around the imagery, around the whole idea that this is not just a book about Carnival, but it's the 60th anniversary of Carnival, 75th anniversary of Stillband. So there's a lot of history happening today. And to capture that in a limited edition variant covered book was, I think it's incredible. So if you see the books 5 years down the line selling for 10 grand each, you know why.
You know that we undercharged.
Yeah.
That's right. That's practically gave it away.
Significantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So where will these be available? Directly through your websites, obviously.
Yes, and I have a gallery in a physical space in Brixton, Brixton
Mhm.
Market
Saw
Road.
that.
We'll be selling them there. The fact that we've just printed a small number, I mean,
Yeah.
I actually feel that once this 400 goes, or the 300 at least, we may be invited to print more. I'd love for the books to end up in Waterstones, to end up in some of the more prestigious bookstores, and also one of the areas that I'm really keen to get the books are bookshops in galleries throughout the world. You know, I would love the books to be in Tate, in V&A, you know, in some of these more prestigious libraries. It's good enough. So and the work speaks for itself. So I would absolutely love that.
I know from our experience, it's rather difficult to be selling overseas. The hardest place I ever shipped books was to the UK.
Oh, really?
There's one I tried to get to one guy. It arrived in Scotland, never to be seen again.
Whoa.
And finally, my daughter was going to Spain and spending a couple nights in London on the way. She took a book with her and mailed it to using the Royal Mail. And it got there.
A lot cheaper as well.
It's
Doing
tricky.
it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and then there's tariffs, which we won't talk about.
Oh God, yeah. It costs as much to ship a book.
I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. Pull me back. Pull me back.
We can
from
do
that
that
one.
afterwards.
Pull me back.
Don't get me started.
Don't. Good grief. I've got the right colour hat on. I don't know.
So anyhow, so there's so if someone wants to buy it, or
we have a website. So the books are on the website. We have flagging from our Instagram accounts, or you can physically come into the gallery space and get one there. So yeah, it's.
So the website, just for those of you listening on the radio, the website is info@acelebrationofdemonstration.com. My personal Instagram, which I use to direct traffic to that particular website, is chasingthelight_67. You can find me there, and that links to my website and so forth. Wayne's details are Wayne Campbell. What's your details?
My details are Instagram at A Celebration of Demonstration. The website, again, A Celebration of Demonstration. And the email, info at A Celebration of Demonstration. So
Thanks
A Celebration of Demonstration, I will get you to all of the relevant spaces and places to get in contact with us and or to buy a book or 6.
If another website appears, then you've mistyped.
I get that.
Or you need to clear your history, but that's another conversation. Right?
Yeah. Well, definitely. Yeah, I know our domain is very long, and it can be rather unwieldy, especially when you type it like 600 times a day.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Well, thank you guys for.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I love one thing
you.
we didn't talk about a whole lot, but that I really love about your book is just the idea of something joyful and cultural being an act of resistance and a way to kind of open people's minds in a happy way, in a way that makes us appreciate all of us, all of our differences as good things and things that we can appreciate, or at the very least understand and respect.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was so necessary and so important to look at how resistance is not necessarily a dirty word and find the positivity within that. And I think Carnival does that so well. It really, really does allow you to look at the joy, the color, the beauty, the sound, the smells. It's such a sensory kind of activity that for me, capturing that was a joy, an absolute joy.
Yeah. And I think also as well, you know, just the very essence of humanity in itself it's blended anyway. The separation that we put is what we see on the surface level, but everything is intertwined through different cultures, the language, the food, all that kind of stuff is intertwined. So it's always good to really to take an aspect of the part of the community that we're in and just spotlight it slightly, right? So people understand the context of it and how it knits into what they're living in right now. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I really got that from your project. I love that you incorporated some of the history of Carnival and what it means to certain groups. It made me think about what I experienced in South America, and it made me really think about just how interconnected all of us are. And
Absolutely.
if we can come to understand that and see how all of our stories, all of our origins overlap, they're shared, then we should be able to see each other as family.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So you're my family.
That's right.
I feel a group hug coming on,
We
but
go-
it's just, I don't have long arms.
Virtual. All right. Well, thank you. I'm really glad we heard from you and we're able to put this together.
No,
And-
that's brilliant. Thanks you guys for responding. It was a bit speculative. I didn't know there was get a response, but you know, we're here.
You don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Exactly.